الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره نعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهدي الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. I bear witness, my dear brothers, respected elders, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, our mothers and our sisters, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is our sustainer, is our creator, who has sent us in this world for a very short and appointed time. And after our time is over, we will all be returning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. La sharika lak, we do not associate any partner with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there is no one that deserves our unconditional obedience but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. La ilaha illallah, no one can harm, no one can benefit but Allah. No one can give, no one can take but Allah. No one can honor, and no one can dishonor but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Hasbi Allahu ni'mal wakil. We put our trust in Him. We are always conscious and we always turn to Him. When we need help, we return to Him. He's the only one that can help, and He can only one that can benefit. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ba'da a'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. إنما يوفى الصابرون أجرهم بغير حساب. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, verily, only the patient will receive their reward without any hisab, without any accounting, any reckoning. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وَلَمَنْ صَبَرَ وَغَفَرَ إِنَّ ذَلِكَ لَمِنْ عَزْمِ الْأُمُورِ. Whoever is patient and forgives, verily, that is of a matter requiring great determination. Azmil umur. It requires a great determination. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا استعينوا بالصبر والصلاة إن الله مع الصابرين. O you who believe, seek help through patience and prayer. Sabri wa salah. Seek help through patience and prayer. Inna Allah ma'a sabirin. Allah is with the patient. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with us. As we are going through patience, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala becomes with us. Allah is present with us. Allah is with us. Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah, in his work, Uddatu Sabirin, the patience, he mentions about patience and divides it in three components. Number one, patience in worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Patience in being obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And number two, patience in avoiding sins or acts of disobedience. And number three, patience with the decree of Allah or any calamities or trials that befalls us. The three types of patience that Imam Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah mentioned. Patience is something that is half of an iman. As-sabru nisful iman. Prophet said that sabr, patience, is half of iman. Ash-shukru nisful iman. And gratitude is half of iman. But the scholars have said that sabr is like shukr and shukr is like sabr. Sabr is like, patience is like gratitude, and gratitude is like patience. How? Because sabr, patience, is gratitude in difficulty. Patience is, as you're persevering, as you are persevering, you are being grateful in whatever condition you're in. And as you are going through any difficulty, you are being grateful in whatever condition you're in. So sabr is shukr in difficulty. And shukr, gratitude, is also sabr. And how? Shukr, gratitude, is patience in whatever you have. When you're grateful, you're just saying that Alhamdulillah, I'm happy, I'm grateful, I'm content. You're being content with, and you're being patient with whatever condition that you are in. So sabr is shukr, and shukr can be also sabr. Imam al-Haddad rahimahullah, he breaks down these three components of Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah's three types of patience a little bit more granularly, and he said that there are 5 types of patience, 5 ways to have patience. And today we will talk about those 5 ways to have patience. First, as Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah's first categorization, which is having patience in persevering in obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Imam al-Haddad rahimahullah said that, but how do you get this? How do you attain this type of patience? So if everybody says, okay, so we understand patience really good, but it's super difficult, man. How do we get this? How do we get our kids to have patience? How do we have patience? And it takes effort. And it's like the more difficulties you have, every time we have difficulty, we're about to fail, or we have something that's going against us, and we say, hey, that's just too much for me to have patience right now. Or, every time this happens, I fail. So think of patience, or any opportunity to have patience or practice your patience muscle, as if you're going to the gym and you're lifting weight, right? If there is no resistance, if you're not lifting those weights, you would not be able to build your muscle. If there was nothing difficult you're working against, you would not be able to build your strength. So the strength that you build are because of the situations that you go through. If you say that those are the difficult moments, those are the times that I slip, those are the times that are challenging, those are the times you can view those times also as opportunities. That every time we feel that, man, I don't want this, you can say, this is for me to be trained. This is for me to train to persevere. So your patience muscle, Imam Haddad rahimahullah mentions that you realize this patiently persevering in obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How do you attain it? He said, by ikhlas and sincerity in your heart, and by bringing Allah, presence of heart with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Which Imam Ghazali rahimahullah also mentions as a first requisite of a salah with khushu. Imam Ghazali rahimahullah said that if you want to have a salah where you have khushu, first and foremost you have to have al-hudur. Fahduru, Allah says in the Quran, be present. So you have to have presence of heart. In your heart, you have to have presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if you have presence of Allah, if you feel and if you be conscious, if you're aware of Allah, and if you're sincere to Him, that is how you cultivate patient, persevering in obedience of Allah inwardly, in your heart. And how do you do it outwardly? He says you do outwardly by, even if it is difficult, by continuing to show up. Continuing to show up, just like you continue to show up at the gym. You continue to show up at the practice. Like the Kobe Bryant, when he said that all the success is because of the 4 a.m.s, how they showed up. Showing up is half of the effort. Showing up. So showing up for salah, showing up for obedience, showing up for good deeds, and not missing them, even if it is difficult, just showing up. And then try to go to the next level if you can show up with some zeal. If you can show up with some feelings in your heart. And how do you get that? How do you get that zeal? How do you get that help? And you get that help by remembering Allah's promises. You're remembering the promises of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What will Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give me? Just like the kids, how you inspire them, motivate them. If you do this, then you're going to get this. If you finish this, then this is what you're going to get. If you do, like in the Quran class, when the teachers are teaching, and like, okay, once you finish the juz, we're going to have a celebration, or we're going to give you a treat. Right? We inspire the kids. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keeps on inspiring us throughout the Quran and the Prophet ﷺ throughout his sayings about if we do our salah, if we are persevering in our salah, what will Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us? Having yaqeen and the zeal to show up because Allah will take care of me. Allah will be present with me. Allah will give me the best of this world. Allah will make my hisab easy for me. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give me iman at the time of death. Allah will give me whatever promises we see from the Prophet ﷺ or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we remember those to have the zeal to patiently persevere in good deeds. What are the rewards of patiently persevering this first type of patience? What are the rewards of this first type of patience? The Imam mentions that the person who continues to show up for good deeds, continues to have patience in doing good deeds, are rewarded by the station or the ability to come closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They're able to come closer to Allah. They're also given the sweetness of the good deeds that they're performing. The good deeds that they're performing, Allah will give them the flavor and the taste and the sweetness of that. Like as you're reading Quran and you feel like, man, today I don't want to read, and you still open the book, you still open the Quran, and you say, no, I got to do my 2 pages. And you start reading the first page and you're like, man, so tired. And then you push through to the second page and all of a sudden something just flows. The people that do marathons, people that run, they say that after the first few miles, when you get to that, that zone, right? When you just flow, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you that flow. That's one of the rewards of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when you show up and when you push through. So closeness to Allah and sweetness and taste and flavor and that flow in your ibadah. Even though we don't do good deeds to feel the flow, right? We don't do good deeds for pleasure. We do good deeds to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us, that is a reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So first type of patience is patiently persevering in obedience or doing good deeds for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Abu Malik al-Ash'ari radiallahu anhu reported that the Prophet ﷺ said that as-sabru di'a, the sabr, patience is like light. Light. It'll give us light in our hearts. We're going to be able to see clearly. We're going to be able to have that closeness and sweetness. And second type of patience is patient endurance in renouncing sins. Renouncing sins. How do you continue to have patience against sins? How do you have that? So, it is mentioned by Imam Haddad rahimahullah here, is that realized or attained, this type of patience is attained by avoiding the sins and avoiding the places or the company where these sins are committed. So, you know that if I do this, or if I get into this environment, or this, if I go into this company, I will end up getting back in that. That I'm doing really well, I'm staying away from that, and if I get back to that circle, if I get back to that hangout, if I get back to that environment, I will fall back into it. So, we're told that stay away and strive to stay away, and stay away also from the company and the environment that takes us back to those sins, right? Nowadays, it is so easy for us to even fall back into sins because sins can be right here on our hands. On our hands, right? Could be right on our gadgets. For our kids that are growing up with a lot of gadgets, there could be a lot of distractions. There could be a lot of ways to hang out in the wrong forums, the wrong chat groups, the wrong apps. So it's very difficult. It's a difficult time that we're living in. Inshallah, the reward is also higher. But we have to make sure that we make sure the environment we create, we curate the environment for our kids, making sure that we install something that can monitor all the activities and all the devices at home, making sure that we are keeping up to date of all the new apps and new things that are coming up that we have to be aware of as our kids are growing up. It's really, really important to create that environment for ourselves, making a bunch of different layers of password and this and that to do anything that takes you beyond like a certain level of material or content. Really important. So this staying away from sins is realized, it's attained by avoiding them, by staying away from the environment and the company, right? And inwardly it's avoided by trying to keep the soul, keep our heart away from even thinking about those sins. Usually for this ummah, the fleeting thoughts or the thoughts that pass through, we're forgiven for those thoughts, right? But the scholars that have done work in the thoughts, like Imam Allama Suyuti rahimahullah, who has done work on like the different levels of thought, that our thoughts are not us, they sometimes go through our mind and we don't become our thoughts, but until we dwell on those thoughts, and we start fantasizing about those thoughts, or we think about those thoughts, and then slowly that thought becomes our intention. And then eventually that intention becomes our action. That's when our thoughts become us. Even though initially our thoughts are not us. Initially we're not responsible for our thoughts. So important that not only we stay away from the environment, we keep our hearts, we protect our hearts from the thoughts of those things as well. Because the more we're going to nurture those thoughts, the more we're going to get closer to making intention and then getting closer to action. And this type of patience is helped by remembering, being conscious and being fearful of Allah's displeasure. That if Allah is displeased with me, then what else matters to me? Nothing matters if Allah is not pleased with me. So that love of Allah that drives the fear of Allah. Not the type of fear that we have against wild animals or snakes, but it's a type of fear that I love Allah so much that I would want to be away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I don't want to get all the effort I made to get close to Him, now I'm going to be thrown back and have this distance? That how do I increase in that love and nearness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So remembering the displeasure and remembering the consequences that the Quran and the Prophet ﷺ has told us about for those sins. How is a slave rewarded by this type of patience? And the Imam mentions here that a slave is rewarded by making these type of sins that he is avoiding. Allah will make these sins hateful to him. That it'll be easier for him to be thrown into the fire then committing the sins. Like when Ibrahim a.s. persisted against the shirk. And he was just a little boy and he was persistent. And he said, I'm never going to worship these idols. And he's just a young boy and the entire city is against him. Until the point that they are building this fire to throw him, right? Literally. And he would not give up. That it is more difficult for him to be doing that sin than thrown into the fire. And Allah will give that type of ability in our hearts. The third type of patience is patient endurance of unpleasant things that comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Trials and tribulations. Trials and tribulations. Fasbir, Allah says, Fasbir sabran jamila. Therefore, O believers, endure in all adversity with beautiful patience. Beautiful patience. How do you attain this? Like, okay, it's easy to say, but have you gone through it? When we tell people, they will say, did you experience anything like this in your life? Then how do you know? How do you know? But it's something that in different forms and shapes we will all go through in different types of trials. May Allah give us afiyah, inshallah. May Allah give us ease. May Allah not give us tests. But when we have those difficulties, how do we realize and attain it? By forsaking restlessness. Imam al-Haddad mentions, forsake restlessness and forsake feeling annoyed and irritated. Give that up. Give up feeling annoyed, irritated, and restlessness when you go through trials. Because he said that no, that will only make the pain even more difficult. And what do the modern psychologists say? Suffering is equal to pain. S is equal to pain, P plus R, resistance. The more you resist, the more your suffering is going to increase. The more you resist, the more your suffering is going to increase. And the more you take it easy, the more you just go with it. The same situation, two people are going through the same thing. One would be with ease and one would be with a lot of difficulty because they're resisting, they're fighting it. So being content and giving up irritation, giving up feeling annoyed, knowing that I will have contentment with what Allah has given me. And this is rewarded that by Allah giving them the sweetness of surrender. The Imam mentions the person who does this type of patience, they will have the sweetness of contentment in their heart. That they are content with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Schneidker and Emmons, these two researchers, they've done studies on people that are, groups of people, patient people that are doing patience, or people that are showing this annoyance and complaining and when they're going through difficulties, right? And they find that those people that are complaining and not having patience, they're having lots of symptoms, headaches, flare-ups, ulcers, diarrhea, pneumonia. On the other hand, people who exhibit impatience, irritability, so they are basically complaining about their health, right? And people that were patient and they were just kind of going with it tend to be happier, experience less negative emotions, make better friends, achieve their goals, and have better health. So this is when we remember the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. Wondrous is the affair of the believers, for there is good for him in every matter. And this is not the case with anyone except the believer. If he is happy, then he thanks Allah, thus there is good for him. And if he is harmed, then he shows patience and thus there is good for him as well. SubhanAllah. The fourth type of patience, and I'll have to wrap up, fourth type of patience is unpleasant things from people. Offenses that people commit to us, whether offenses they commit to us or things they withhold from us, our rights they withhold from us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَاصْبِرْ عَلَى مَا يَقُولُونَ وَهْجُرْ هُمْ حَجْرًا جَمِيلًا. In Surah Al-Muzammil, Allah says, be patient, O Prophet, over what they say and avoid them with grace, with gracious avoidance. Usayd ibn Hudayr rahimahullah said, that the Prophet ﷺ said that verily you will see favoritism after me. You will see favoritism after me. So be patient. Fasbir. Fasbir. The Prophet said, have patience until you meet me at the fountain in paradise. Until you meet me. So we remember that when I'm having patience and I'm forgiving people, I'm waiting to get my return, not in this world, but there, inshallah. There, from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So how do you attain this? Preventing the tongue to say anything bad about the people. Preventing the heart from hating the people that does harm to you. And relying on Allah's help and rewards. And this is held by the knowledge that those who suppress their anger, those who have patience and forgiveness, what Allah will give them. The Prophet ﷺ said, one who checks his anger while having the ability to act upon it, Allah will fill their heart with serenity, with peace and iman. They have the ability to show anger. They have the ability. It's not just that they're in a situation they can't speak up. Even if they have the ability and they don't, then this is the reward. And last but not least, patience against our desires. Patience against our desires. And why is it separate than patience against sins? Because sometimes you have to also train yourself to give up things that are halal for you for the sake of staying away from what's haram. Such as, okay, you ate and maybe a little bit more eating is not completely haram, but the more you're going to do that, the more you're going to harm yourself. It's not beneficial anymore. And you're getting into a halal, which is going to eventually lead to haram. So how do you realize this? This is by inwardly stop thinking and reclining towards our desires, outwardly committing it or coming close to the environment, just like the sins. But know that this is helped by this statement of the Sahaba, that the Sahaba said that we used to stay away from many halal to stay away from haram. Or the scholars like Abu Sulaiman al-Darani rahimahullah said, to abandon one desire is more beneficial to the heart than 1 year of worship. And this is, we see lots of research around this. The signature research that came out of Stanford, the marshmallow test. They took preschoolers, groups of preschoolers, and they said, we'll give you a marshmallow. If you have it now, you can have one. And if you wait, you can have two. And those kids that waited to have more, they had more self-control, they had patience, and they were able to give up their temptations. They followed them 14 years later as teenagers. And they found that those that had higher self-regulation, higher self-control, those kids were more successful, higher in their academics, had more friends, and more popular, more confident. And there are many other tests that followed that after that. So we see that right here, right now in today's world through research, but we also see that from this training of our scholars and the traditions of our scholars. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all of the tawfiq, inshallah. May Allah guide us and continue to give us tawfiq to strive. May Allah grant us ease, but also beautify our character with beautiful patience, inshallah. Astaghfirullah. Astaghfirullah. الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره قال الله تعالى بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الله ملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala send His choicest blessings upon our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala elevate our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. May Allah give him maqam al-mahmud. May Allah give him all the status and all the promises of the Day of Judgment. May Allah give us His ummah's intercession on the Day of Judgment. May Allah give us all the khair that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam has asked for in this world and the hereafter. May Allah save us from all the shar, all the evils the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam has protection from in this world and the hereafter. Ameen. May Allah grant us according to His greatness and His grandeur and His majesty. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us everything that we need and more according to His status and His greatness. Ameen. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Aqim as-salam.